Hey guys, week 25 here. I got 5 reviews, an update, the usual stuff. Let's get into it. I wanted to address a couple things beforehand. A lot of YouTubers, they'll share stuff in Facebook groups. I do it occasionally. I do it once a week in a few different groups. I was wondering if, if that's a little tacky. I shouldn't really do that. Is it spamming? I try to interact with the people in the groups as well, and I purchase stuff from the DVD groups. It's kind of like one of those iffy things where I don't want to spam the group, but I kind of want to, advertise, spread the word, discuss about movies, so I share them. Let me know what you guys think about that. If you think it's just, keep it on your channel and they'll find you, or, don't spam. I don't spam, but don't share in those kind of places, Also, I wanted to talk about the audio versions of these. I had started doing the audio podcast versions. I think I'm all the way up to episode 8 and 7 and 8, and they're on the Shut Up Brandon podcast feed. There's a link below as always. Before I get into the actual movies I reviewed, I picked up the DVDs and Blu-rays. I wanted to talk about, I had a chance to see a double feature of Halloween Spookies, which is a movie that I directed with Dustin Mills, and another movie he directed. It was the debut Blood Ritual. It is on his Patreon right now for subscribers. Or people pitch into it. But yeah, I got to check out a double feature of that. It was really cool seeing Halloween Spookies with a crowd, with a group of people. I enjoyed seeing that. It was really fun. I'm proud of it. It's a fun little movie we did. We'd like to do another one next year, or this year for the next year. And Blood Ritual, which was a found footage kind of ghost story, which are two things that I'm not really a big fan of. But what I did like about it was the acting was really good, and he set up a really good mythology with it, which he's always good at. So I think it was pretty interesting. Like I said, the acting's great in it, and that drove the movie pretty far for me. But not necessarily my favorite genres, but I enjoyed it. That's Blood Ritual. Check it out if you're interested. Let's get into the reviews. The first one I will be reviewing is The Devil's Reign from Severin Films. Yeah, I had heard about this movie for years. I had the DVD, never watched it. When it came out, it was probably like 10 years ago. I was like, PG 70s horror movie, but then you don't really realize that movies get rated PG that shouldn't all the time, and they're some of the best, actually. Jaws and all sorts of stuff. But Devil's Reign, this movie is insane. It's directed by Robert Fuest. He did Abominable Dr. Fives and Dr. Fives Rises Again, which I love, so I should have watched this years ago. Has Ernest Borgnine in it, who I love, William Shatner, Tom Skerritt, Eddie Albert. There's some other people in here as well. Who pops up? John Travolta, one of his first early roles, and it had participation from Anton LaVey from the Satanic Church. He was on set kind of making sure the rituals were right. This movie's bonkers. This movie is absolutely ridiculous. The plot here, it opens up right in the beginning. We see William Shatner and his mom are petrified that the father's not coming home. The patriarch of the family, they believe they're blaming somebody named Corbus. It's Corbus. The father comes, and he comes back, and it's raining, and he's in this weird wax form, and he melts before their eyes. This launches off Shatner to go find Corbus, and they're talking about a book, that they need this book. The interactions between Shatner and Ernest Borgnine, who plays Corbus, are great. Borgnine is chewing the scenery. He's loving it. He's doing such a good job. He's super fun. At points, he's in makeup with these gnarly ram horns. It's really great stuff. The movie doesn't ever slow down. Tom Skerritt shows up to find out what happened to his family, and more insanity pursues. He has a girl with ESP, a girlfriend with ESP, or wife, and it's just, why is this happening? It's barely discussed. She's only there so they can carry the story even faster and show backstory and show connection between the Preston family, which is Tom Skerritt and William Shatner's family, and Corbus's family, his relatives. The whole movie is just ridiculous. It's about an hour and 22 minutes. There's some chase scenes. There's some shootouts coming out where these crazy cult members who are featureless and black eyes, shootouts and chase scenes with them, and by the end of the movie, it has one of these giant special effects extravaganzas. Great melting effects. It's probably got the longest melt scene ever. It goes on for way too long. It's almost like they advertised the climax and they gave you almost 10 minutes of the climax. This movie doesn't really take very long to get started, if at all, anytime, and from then on, it doesn't stop. I really loved it. I was vastly entertained. It has a lot of actors that I enjoy watching. Shatner's pretty good in it. He's a little restrained, which was really cool to to see. He's having fun, but he's not completely crazy doing the thing like this all the freaking time. And Ernest Borgnine was my favorite part. I love seeing him in it. The features on here are ridiculous. Let me take a look for you guys so I remember everything, how great they are. The auto commentary, which is ported over from the DVD, was pretty cool. And I imagine the director's passed by now. A new interview with Tom Skerritt, which I love to see, and he laughs at the end when they say that, how'd you feel about Anton LaVey? He's like, I don't know who he was. I must have met him, but he was on set, you said. And they said he was there for the satanic stuff, and he was like, they wanted, satanic questioning, and he's like, oh, and he just started laughing. There's a special interview with the special effects artists on here, and there's also some old stuff with like these not old stuff, but there's these new ones with satanic people from the Church of Satan are on there, and they're talking about how Anton LaVey, who passed, has been talking. He talked about this and how he worked on it. Now, they necessarily don't think it's a great movie, but they understand that it's fun and silly. But and they also have the script supervisor on here, which is awesome because you never get a script supervisor interviewed, and she gets in depth about it. She worked on all these Spielberg movies. She talks about how she first got this role and basically how weird it was filming The Devil's Reign. I loved it. I think it's a great release. It looks good. It sounds good. It's just a blast. Perfect for this time of year in the fall. It has a nice desert setting. It's in a desert town and a ghost town, so it sets up this weird isolation and atmosphere. I like it. I think it's really great.
Who calls me from out of the pit?
There's never been anything like The Devil's Reign.
Come forth from the abyss.
Starring Academy Award winner Ernest Borgnine, Eddie Albert, William Shatner, Ida Lupino, and with the special participation of Anton LaVey, High Priest of the Church of Satan.
And John Travolta in his most exciting film.
I don't know whether doing a Star Trek movie would be a step backwards for me personally. I've just finished a movie called The Devil's Reign, in which...
yeah, what are you in that?
Well, I get possessed by Ernest Borgnine. It was very painful.
And I saw the pressures that were building up for Bob by the financial people.
I know that we started to get behind, and as you know, with anything, and especially low budget, it gets very tense.
And it was such a cheap film, we couldn't make full bodies for these people, so we made heads that were partially almost melted from a sex shop. We bought these inflatable dummies.
Anton was invited to be on set. He described Bob Fuest as a visionary.
Anton LaVey hit it off with John Travolta. There's even a note where Anton LaVey refers to having done a sort of little success ritual for John Travolta's
Yes, a
career.
little rite.
Scream with the Devil, the most astounding downpour of horror ever seen.
Your body can be entered and cleansed of its unworthy soul, the Devil's Reign. Heaven help us all when the Devil's Reign. Now on Blu-ray for the first time.
Next one from Severin is The Devil's Honey. Yeah, this is a Lucio Fulci movie made in 1986. I had not seen it. This is one that kind of passed me by a bunch of times. I had those a couple bootlegs that were imports, and I imagine the quality was terrible. Supposedly, this is the first time it's uncut, although some Internet Movie Database runtimes don't match up with this one, but I don't really trust those because, you know, anybody can change them. And the PAW and TSC conversion could mess things up. But it's supposed to be uncut, and it's in HD for the first time. A lot of the Italian prints, they're beat up, and this is the best this one's ever going to look. I don't know if it's never probably going to be released anywhere else. But The Devil's Honey, this is a doozy. Listening to the special features on here, I learned that Fulci, I always knew towards the end of his career he was sick, but he was fighting viral hepatitis, and he finished Murder Rock, and he was basically comatose for a while. And his comeback movie was The Devil's Honey. He's no longer working with his old producer who did stuff like Zombie and New York Ripper and all those supernatural Fulci movies that everyone loves. But this does start his first time he worked with Brett Halsey, who he worked on a couple more movies. Devil's Honey, how do I explain this movie? This is one of the most perverse, weird movies I've ever seen. We have this girl who's obsessed with the saxophone player. The saxophone player is an abusive guy. He's very sexually abusive, very sexually pushing, and not a good guy. he has this motorcycle accident and he passes. This doctor, who's also having sexual problems of his own, a lot of problems with his wife, who's played by Chlorine Clary from Hitchhike. They end up, he has this big fight and he messes up the surgery and the saxophone player dies. This upsets the woman, and she was a very submissive, being pushed into these sexual things, and she decides to go completely dominant, kidnaps the doctor, and basically starts turning him into her sex slave, which is a complete reverse, which is very bizarre that you have her being this submissive thing who's fighting off all these weird advances from her boyfriend, but eventually caves in, and then kind of turning into this dominatrix woman thing, and she's just like beating the crap out of Brett Halsey, and Brett Halsey also had this strange, or Dr. Simpson in the movie, this strange fascination with weird sex and strange things like that. So it's like these reverse roles for both the characters, these almost weird sexual awakenings that cannot be healthy for them, considering that they're in their violence and they're unauthorized on each other. It's a super strange movie. She's very cruel to Brett Halsey, has him in a leash. So I'll say this, sick Fulci was sick. That's pretty much what sums it up. There's an orgasm by saxophone. There's a strange menage a trois in a movie theater. It brings in a lot of weird sexual moments and fetishes in the movie, as much as they could do. The music's great because it's like this classy saxophone style jazz music. It's entertaining as hell. It's weird as hell. It's creepy as hell. It just gives you the creeps, man. It's a strange movie. Very enjoyable. Pushes the boundaries. Fulci never cared about boundaries. He was always pushing that transgressive cinema, and he was just always going further and further. If it wasn't a horror movie, if just like this weird sexual psychological thriller, it didn't matter to him. All his movies are usually entertaining or intriguing and interesting. And this one is as well. There's interviews with Brett Halsey on here, which I really loved. I love seeing what he had to say about the movie. There's also interviews with Chlorine Clary, the producer, who talks about how he got Fulci to do the movie in the first place and being sick, the composer, and of course Stephen Thrower's on here talking about the movie, which is a wealth of knowledge, and Troy Horworth. So you get both those guys. Those guys are on all these releases. They know everything. Video essay from him. So they do a lot of stuff. It's a very entertaining, bizarre movie. I really recommend this too. Both those movies, Devil's Reign and Devil's Honey from Seven Films, I loved them.
Get up!
Her biggest difficulty at the time was she had no discipline and no talent. Other than that, she was really good.
Questo finto pudore, quindi per me mettermi in topless mi cambiava niente.
E siamo andati avanti così, lottando per giorno con tutte le difficoltà che potevamo incontrare.
Io già mi ero un po' impaurito perché sì, per sentito dire, ma per sentito dire tra i grandi del cinema di quel momento.
Why did you let him?
Believe me, I did my best. I think maybe Devil's Honey is the last really well-controlled, reasonably budgeted film that he made.
Fulci's fascination with the erotic and the taboo can be traced all the way back to his 1969 Giallo perversion story.
The next one here is Legend of the Holy Drinker from Arrow Academy. I had not seen this movie. I had not heard much about it. It has Rutger Hauer in it. It's based off a book. I put this in, and right away I could tell this was going to be like this sad, morose movie. It's about a drunk, but he doesn't overact and stumble around everywhere. He sleeps under a bridge. He's a Polish immigrant in Paris, I believe it is. And this movie is super bizarre. By a chance of good faith, this guy loans him 200 francs, and he tells him, when you get a chance, pay it back to this church. This basically is the catalyst to start Rutger Hauer's strange I want to say a couple weeks in his life, because he starts meeting all these people from his past, and he lives like 100 years in these few weeks. Metaphorically, he sees all these things and meets all these people, and you get glimpses into his past. He has this small box, which is probably the most emotional part of the movie. He has a small box where he keeps all his trinkets in, and he has this watch, and they show where he got this watch, and it was immediately a tearjerker for me. And when that watch comes up every time, it's a tearjerker. And it's a story about kind of a sad drunk who can't seem to do this one last thing no matter what. And it's like a plight of a good person who has a horrible addiction. And that's necessarily what this is. You like the character, although he doesn't always do the right thing, and you just want him to go pay his debt. And it has these strange characters that from his past, and you learn what he's done and why he's so sad and all these things, and this weird newfound luck that eventually ends in a very unique way. I don't want to spoil it, but Rutger Hauer's great in it. Top-notch acting. He's always great. Really enjoyed that. It's a fairly long movie, over 2 hours. The atmosphere is really, really great. It has these surreal moments, and I love the backstory. I love to see this guy in Rutger Hauer's eyes. It's glossed over from drinking, from being drunk, and there's just a lot of sadness in there. And he does such a great job, and it's a very unique movie. On here, there's only a couple interviews. I believe one was with the producer who wanted to have the movie made and get the director and everything. That's the one that comes to mind. I think that's the only thing on the disc. And a new interview with Rutger Hauer. How could I forget that? Which was really interesting as well. I'd recommend that one. It's a nice movie. It's a little long, but it's shot in a beautiful location. It's shot beautifully, and it's very, very well acted.
Where am I going? Who knows?
Well, you're a foreigner. I could show you the way if you like. It's God who has set you in my path, I'm certain of it. And I have a great favor to ask you, something very close to my heart.
You asking me a favor? Me?
Yes, and I know that you are worthy of it.
It'll be my pleasure.
Don't take it badly, will you? If I speak to you very frankly, I can't help seeing that just for the moment you're in some difficulty, in need of money. No, don't be offended, please. No offense. It can happen to anybody. Now, I have more money than I need. Please. Please. Won't you tell me how much you want just to be going on with? Just tell me.
20 francs wouldn't be bad.
You'll need more than that. You'll need at least 200.
200. 200 francs, of course, would be a lot better. I can't accept it.
Why not?
Because I wouldn't know how to pay back that kind of money. You couldn't come after me to ask for it. I haven't got a house. I sleep under the bridges. Every night under the bridge. So. But I'm a man of honor. I know how to behave. I just don't have an address, that's all.
I have no address either.
The next one here is Three Tears on Bloodstained Flesh, or it could be pronounced Three Tears, but I believe it's Three Tears on Bloodstained Flesh. This one was kind of a more like throwback to a giallo made in the Midwest, so that kind of interested me. And right when you say like throwback to giallo, I have high standards, so I have to say that. I have immediate high standards because I love Italian films. I watch a lot of Italian films. When you say throwback, I'm expecting something like, maybe one of the couple ones of Profosso Rosso that just came out, stuff like that that's super Italian, that knows all the little intricate details. But this one it's a 2 hour and 21 minute independent movie, so it's quite long. It is fairly low budget. What I will say about it is the acting's fairly solid. It's super ambitious. It sets up this town, and the things that it does well like a giallo are it has a lot of twist and the lighting and the plot, the general plot feels like a giallo too. Kind of this outsider going into a location, fish out of water approach, and and a lot of side zany characters fits it, but it doesn't feel shot like a giallo, or the music's not like a giallo, or it's not edited like a giallo. Maybe a shot here or there feels like one, but it's not really. And that to me was very distracting, because it's definitely a budget constraint, because if you look at a lot of like Don't Torture a Duckling, there's these wonderful shots of the camera following really steady, even though it's not handheld, and then they'll end on a really poignant note, and I love that about a giallo without saying much. This movie is very talky, so it says a lot of things and a lot of details and whatnot. But the twists in here are absolutely ridiculous. Let me get into the plot. I should have said that right off the bat. We have this guy, Dominic Merrick, I believe, or his niece dies, and he goes back to this old town to figure out what happened. You realize that Dominic has a chip on his shoulder. He's very angry. He's very violent, and at first he's very, very somebody you want to stay away from. You don't really like the character. You're thinking, man, this guy is some you don't want to be Charles Bronson type character. And over time, you realize when he's dealing with these townspeople, you kind of side with him because they're monsters. They're monsters, and you just hate them. He tries to find this information, what happens to his niece, while his daughter tags along, and he has his sister, and she's a drunk now. She's torn up from this. You realize this town has a weird, seedy underbelly, which is very giallo. It's not a high-class place like a lot of giallo. It's middle class, lower class kind of area, and they add in this weird supernatural element that it doesn't necessarily go where you're supposed to, but it's kind of cool. Some of the twists, when you start watching the features, you realize they did set them up better than you think they are by the end of the movie. You're like, it came out of nowhere, but they do kind of set it up here and there. The acting, like I said, ranges. My favorite characters in the movie are actually some of the weird side characters, like the old man who runs the shop is great, or the town drunk hermit, or even the coroner. Those guys are really great. The sheriff is also top-notch, and one of the main girls and the friends is good, and the lead. He does a lot. He has a good range here. He goes from being angry to sad, and he does a lot of things here. There's a lot of fighting in here. Like I said, it's super ambitious. There's gunplay. There's gore. The practical gore looks really good. Dustin Wade Mills did the digital effects, so I didn't even know that until I started watching. I was like, oh. So there's a lot going on in here. There's a couple familiar faces. Kevin Roach is in here from, what is the one? Harvest Lake. Jim O'Rear's in here from the Hospital movies. So I recognize some people here and there. My only major complaint is that it's not really necessarily shot like a giallo. It's way too long. There's complaints. And the editing techniques, that doesn't really feel like a giallo. It's supposed to be a throwback in that sense, and it works half of it works and half of it doesn't. And I'm only being so hard on it is because when you say that, I just feel like you're setting yourself up big, and I guess I went with this more of a magnifying glass than usual. Like I said, though, it's super ambitious, and I respect the hell out of them for making it. The disc is loaded, too. The disc has 2 commentaries, which I listen to at work, and Making of, which is like 30 minutes, which talks with the director and whatnot. The director appears in the movie himself. So, there's a lot going into it. I don't know how you cut it down, but it definitely does feel like 2 hours and 21 minutes. And like I said, some of the lighting is flat at times, but when they get it right, it looks pretty damn good. It's up to you guys. If you like the movie, if you've spotted it before, I would really recommend the release. It's tons of stuff from On Earth Films. If it sounds like you like these kind of low-budget movies, it's less giallo. Hell, it's more like a Police Intensa movie, or how do you say that? The Italian action cop movies, because it's this guy on a mission that can't be stopped. More so, or even, we don't see the point of view of the black glove killer where the glove. I know that's not a necessary thing here. We don't have close-ups of eyes. We don't have many close-ups of eyes, if I can recall, and we don't have a Jim Beam bottle. There's no Jim Beam bottle. How can it be a giallo without a Jim Beam bottle? So there's a lot of things that they could have done, I think, to add in to make it more Italian style, but I respect the hell out of them for what they did, and what I'm sure they had a low budget, and it's really ambitious, and he went out there and he did capture some really good moments in it. Some of the dialogue is pretty raunchy, pretty funny at times. Some people might find it funny. Sometimes I did find something, so especially the old man in the shop was great. But that's 3 tears on bloodstained flesh. I believe it's 3 tears. But yeah, it's it might be 3 tiers, but it's fairly unique. I'm not necessarily sure if I give it a recommendation, but if it sounds like you'd like it, then I'd check it out. I'm sure you will if you can tell by the trailer.
I don't even know why I went in there in the first place. I'm really scared. I think I'm being watched. There's a darkness around me. I can feel it. Please help me, Uncle Nick.
You're not gonna like what you find.
So what's your story?
My cousin died.
Oh, you're Lexi's cousin. Sucks about what happened.
I don't actually know what happened.
It's probably better that way.
She was a local, wasn't she?
My niece.
You really think you can help?
Saw her that night at the mailbox?
Yes.
It was dark. She was so scared.
She's dead, and it's my fault.
Sometimes things are best left in the past. You dig deep enough, and you'll find demons.
Your niece was cursed. I'm good at what I do, and I like it.
You're not welcome around here.
I'll leave when I find out who did this to her.
Let it go.
Oh my God.
You shouldn't have come back here.
What the fuck? You little motherfucker.
Following the footsteps of the reason I'm aware.
Damn it.
Get your answer, I'll be somewhere in the question of it all. Everyone is watching and the silverware is everything they want will find back. By the time you say I'm losing, it's somewhere in the question.
Things here are not so black and white as God and the devil. There are many more things to fear. I have to finish this. They'll pay for what they've done. You took everything from me. Take it.
The next one here is Major Dundee from Twilight Time. This is a Sam Peckinpah movie. This one actually has both versions on it, the original so-called butchered version, which I didn't watch theatrical, and the extended version, which is around 2 hours and 25 minutes. Major Dundee was actually Sam Peckinpah's second feature-length film, the first being Deadly Companions, which I haven't seen. And this was made in 1965. After this movie, he pretty much got blacklisted for a while until he made a short, Noon Wine, and then The Wild Bunch, which was a huge hit. Well, not a hit, but it was critically acclaimed, and that kind of got him some more stuff. But Major Dundee follows the story of Charlton Heston, who's kind of like this... He's a major who screwed up big time, so they put him at this prison. He wants to make up for what he's done and kind of redeem himself by rescuing these 3 children who've been kidnapped by a Native American, the Apache tribe. So he gets together this ragtag team of people, volunteers from his army, Confederate prisoners that he has captured, other criminals, and just regular everyday people to find these kids, and they go on a mission. So what you get here is this kind of ragtag team group of guys, man on a mission movie. Richard Harris stars as an old friend of Major Dundee that had a falling out who leads these Confederate guys. James Colbert's in it, Peckinpah regular, and a bunch of other Peckinpah regulars sprinkle this movie. A lot of character actors like Warren Oates and Ben Johnson and L.Q. Jones and R.G. Armstrong and Dub Taylor. Just a lot of guys like that. They're all tremendous in it. Everybody's great in it. It's really a Slim Pickens. It's really great seeing all these people, although I think that Slim Pickens should have got more screen time. He's kind of a little wasted. And this one is definitely a precursor to The Wild Bunch. It feels like The Wild Bunch at times when they go to the Mexican town and they interact with all the Mexican the people there, and they sort of befriend them, kind of in the Wild Bunch vein. The action's not shot as well as The Wild Bunch. Peckinpah definitely found himself in that movie, and maybe he had more freedom. But it definitely didn't have freedom on Major Dundee. There's a lot of things that they probably screwed up here. But towards my only real complaint about Major Dundee is towards the end scene. There's this major fight scene, battle, and you don't know what happened to a lot of the characters. I know necessarily it's not a bad thing, but it glimpses over a lot of things here and there, and I wish that it would have been just a little bit more elaborate. The narration in the movie I don't particularly like because the character doing it is just probably one of the least interesting characters in the movie. When you got guys like Ben Johnson and L.Q. Jones standing in the background, to there's a couple characters in there that you're like, get past these guys. I don't want to see these guys. I want to see Slim Pickens, okay? So it's that kind of stuff, is that some of the leads aren't as good as some of the side characters. And I'm not talking about James Colburn or Richard Harris or Charles Nestor. I'm talking about some of the others. I can't even think of their names. I wasn't familiar with their actors. But I enjoyed it for the most part. I think it's really interesting to see this, especially made before the Wild Bunch. And I think that the acting's really the strong point here. And I like the idea of all these guys coming together that have all their differences and have this hate towards each other, coming together for one good mission. And, it necessarily doesn't end well for a lot of these guys, but I would really recommend checking it out. It's a really cool, unique movie that I hadn't heard much people talk about. It's not one of Peckinpah's most popular, but it's an interesting film for sure.
In 1864, an entire New Mexico settlement was massacred by a band of renegade Apaches.
I hope he was dead when they did that to him.
If he was dead, they wouldn't have bothered.
Major Amos Dundee was assigned to assemble a hunting party.
I want some volunteers, men who can ride, men who can shoot. Return, I promise you nothing.
But with the Civil War still raging, he was forced to fill out his ranks with Confederate prisoners, freed slaves, deserters, and outright criminals.
I didn't sign on to go chasing after no homesick soldier boys.
Which raises the question, who poses the greater threat?
Jailer.
Major Dundee was Sam Peckinpah's first large-scale film, and also the first to be taken away from him and recut.
My executioners left to stand in line.
But now, on its 40th anniversary, most of the missing footage has been located and restored, a brand new score composed, and the entire soundtrack remixed in 5.1 Dolby Digital. The result is a new masterpiece, as close to Sam's original vision as possible.
I'm fighting for the only country I have left, and I kill men in a hopeless war for it.
Major Dundee explodes with all the excitement, intensity, and passion that made Peckinpah one of America's most original and dynamic filmmakers.
He just plain clean shot a hole in me. Now you know I ain't no deserter. I was fixing to come back, I was.
And it features one of the finest casts ever assembled for a Western. Charlton Heston, Richard Harris, James Coburn, Jim Hutton, Michael Anderson Jr., Santa Berger, Ben Johnson, Warren Oates, Brock Peters, Slim Pickens, Duff Taylor, R.G. Armstrong, and me, L.Q. Jones.
I intend to smite the wicked, not save the heathen.
Don't miss Sam Peckinpah's first great epic, as it was always meant to be seen, but never has until now.
Until the Apache is taken or destroyed.
Major Dundee, the extended version.
Now, Major, or across the river in Texas? Right now is just fine, Ben.
All right, guys, let's get into the contest drawing. This is for Lorelei's Grasp. Here we go. Oh, by the way, Tyler, who won Django Kill, I can't get a hold of you. I don't know your information, man. It's been a few weeks, so I haven't heard from you. Get to me so I can send it to you. What do we got? Who's going to win Lorelei's Grasp? It is Christopher Dollier again. Might have to stop doing these contests if it's only the same people. I'm just kidding. Congrats, man. If you want to win these two movies coming up, you do three things, like the Screaming Toilet Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube channel, all this stuff will be below, and leave a comment on the Screaming Toilet website under this page. You'll get a chance to win Burglar from Hell, which I had an extra one. It's a low-budget movie. I've not had a chance to watch it. And Psycho 2, 3, and 4, which I've upgraded on Blu-ray for you guys. So if you want to enter to win those, just do those three things. Also, do me a favor, do a fourth thing. What is your guys' favorite Seven release? And leave that in the comment section below. Your favorite Seven release. All right, I think that we're going to go into the shout-out. I want to give a shout-out now because Kino, right at this minute, it's still going on. It ends November 14th. They're having a sale. They got a bunch of stuff. So if you got pre-orders in for Death Rides a Horse and The Mercenary and Night Killer, cancel them because they're selling them right now on sale for $13 and a bunch of other stuff for $8, $9. So I canceled my orders and ordered a bunch of stuff. And by calculating my pre-orders, I ended up getting like 3 movies for the price of like what I those would have cost $60. I ended up getting 6 movies for $65, including the 3 I would order. So the Kino Sale, I'll put the link below. Check it out. They always got great stuff, great releases, really cool stuff. And I got a lot of good stuff for $65. 6 great movies. Oh, look, great movies. I guess we'll get into the Q&A. What do we have here? Matthew Bushwell, what's your favorite splatter movie? You know, I'm not going to name something obscure. It's really hard to beat Dead Alive, isn't it? You really can't beat Dead Alive. But if you want to go more obscure, I like the Olaf Idbach. I doubt that's very obscure anymore. But, you know, like Burning Moon and Primordius, Lord of the Living Dead. I like those kind of splatter movies. But for classic, you go Dead Alive. Can't beat it. Rick, what's your favorite Belgian or Belgium produced film, and did you see Man Bites Dog? I haven't seen Man Bites Dog. I've had it for years. I've been waiting for it to get released on Blu-ray, but I'm not seeing it come out anytime soon, which kind of saddens me. I have the Criterion DVD here. I should just watch it. I've meant to watch it for like 10 years. Belgium, off the top of my head, I really can't think. I know I've seen them. I know I have probably a slew of them, but I probably just think they're French on accident, just not knowing any better from pure ignorance. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I should have probably, done a better job on looking them up. But what are some, why don't you tell me some good Belgian movies, and I'll tell you if I've seen them. Sorry about that. James Grimmer, my question for you, for your Q&A is, since I have been starting getting the Django movies, are there any other spaghetti westerns you would recommend? If you're starting the Django movies, I'm sure you've seen the Ennio Morricone movies. I meant the Sergio Leone movies with the Ennio Morricone score. You gotta see the trilogy, Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, and Good, the Bad, and Ugly. Also check out his other ones like Duck You Sucker and Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a masterpiece. But for some other ones, check out Campagneros with Franco Nero. That's really fun. The Big Gun Down's really cool. Day of Anger's really cool. Those are the ones that come to the top of my head that I enjoy. Out of the Django movies, I'm not too familiar. Like I said, I've only seen a few of the Django ones. But those ones right there are really fun, really good stuff. Anything Sergio Leone, start with that. If you haven't seen any of those, check those, five spaghetti westerns out he did. And maybe hop into Campagneros, and Big Gun Down's really great too with Lee Van Cleef. Nick, do you like / enjoy horror musicals? If you could name your favorite, some suggestions, Repo. Okay. My favorite, you did a recommendation on Stage Fright here, not the 87 Michele Soave movie. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm trying to get better, guys. My pronunciation skills are not very great. But horror musicals, Stage Fright, the one that recently came out probably a few years ago, that was a lot of fun. I love Poultrygeist by Troma, even though the third act's a little weak. I love Phantom of Paradise, if that counts. That's a great one. And I love Shock Treatment. I'm not a huge fan of Rocky Horror Picture Show, but I love Shock Treatment. Christopher Dallier, favorite cannibal film. My favorite cannibal film is the obvious Cannibal Holocaust, but I also really love Cannibal Apocalypse at number 2, probably a close second. I love Cannibal Ferox. I love Jungle Holocaust. I love, does Cut and Run count? It's a jungle adventure movie, but those are probably my favorite. Even Mountain of Cannibal God's really great. I love the cannibal subgenre, so I would go Holocaust, Apocalypse, Ferox, Jungle Holocaust. I love those 4 are probably the best 4. And then Mountain of Cannibal God, and then Cut and Run, if that counts. But love those kind of things. Or Zombie Holocaust. There's too many good ones, but Cannibal Holocaust number 1. Let's get into the update. Here we go. We got 16 blocks, Last Boy Scout, and Last Man Standing. I wanted Last Man Standing. It was a triple feature. It was only like $2 more to add 16 blocks, so I got it. I like, I haven't seen Last Boy Scout in years. Last Man Standing's by Walter Hill. I love it. It's actually a remake of Fistful of Dollars. Slaughter High from Vestron. I like this one. It's one of my favorite slashers. It's cheesy, it's weird, but I haven't seen it in years. Well, not years, probably at least 5. But yeah, probably since that DVD came out. Looking forward to checking that out in HD. We have Dawn of the Dead, the remake. I remember seeing this in theaters in 2004, skipping school. My parents actually let me skip school because I love the original so much. I was like, I never miss school. You guys gotta let me. They're like, all right. So we skipped school. I don't know why I thought the whole place was gonna be packed with people. And me and 3 of my friends went, and I don't even know if there's that many people in there. But regardless, it's got a bunch of people in there, Ving Rhames, really fun stuff. And that has both versions on there, the theatrical and the director's cut. Then we have Land of the Dead by George Romero. You know what? Both versions on there. So I love Land of the Dead. It gets a bad shake. I saw that in theaters too, and I remember the day I saw it. I had gotten in some sort of drunken brawl the night before. This is years ago. I was like 18, and I remember seeing that with a bruised hand or something like that. But loved it then. I love it now. I think it's underrated. I mean, it's not as good as Night, Dawn, and Day, but nothing is. Get over it. And we have this one, The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid by Philip Kaufman. This is a weird kind of a media book Blu-ray deal here. This one looked interesting to me. I believe it's about the Jesse James Younger gang, the James Younger gang. So I'm interested in that. Then we have The Border. This is a German import. That's a German import as well. This has Jack Nicholson, Harvey Keitel, and Warren Oates in it. Never seen it. Looked interesting to me. We have Idle Hands, Dirt Cheap. I don't know if I've ever saw this movie. I saw parts of it. Looked fun. We have the Blu-ray of El Topo. I'm going to tell you this. One of my biggest, weakest spots in films is Alejandro Jodorowsky. I've never seen any of his movies. And I have Santa Sangre, and I have the DVD set, but these are the Blu-rays of El Topo and Holy Mountain. Then we have Young Guns. Love this movie. Didn't have the Blu-ray. I heard the Blu-ray is not very great, so I always held off. But, you know, I have it now. It wasn't very expensive. Finally got the my fixed version of Private Property, which is cool. Came pretty quick. We have Junior Bonner by Sam Peckinpah. Not an action movie, not a Western. Maybe a Western, but not an action movie. Family drama with Steve McQueen. I have not seen that. And last, we have Scarecrow from Warner Archive with Gene Hackman and Al Pacino. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And as always, have a good one.